Hello everyone, hope you're doing good. Hi, Manpreet Hanspal. I'm an architect and urban designer, and today we are tuning into our podcast series called Architects and Urban Designers Imagination to Reality. And we have with us a very humble personality, Dr. Tom Viribs, who's an architectural designer, educator, writer, curator, urbanist, and what more I would add to the personality. He's been a very, very good mentor and someone who has guided me through my master's. Thank you so much, Professor, for doing this with us, and welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you very much, Manpreet, for the invitation. It's a pleasure to join your podcast and speak to you this morning.
Thank you so much. So, how are you doing today?
Very well, very well. Yeah.
So, we'll start the podcast with a very good question about your journey, that how you thought about it. And I asked this to my guests because I think it's important for our listeners and our YouTube family to know that uh, what took this career the long way, because you have run a really successful career, and what drives you, what's your motivation?
It's a very interesting question because I think if one asks that to someone at the early start of their career or the very beginning of their career, they'll talk about what they want to achieve in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say I still feel that way, perhaps 30 or 35 years into my career. In a sense, I'm still motivated and driven, maybe more my academic side of experimenting with students at an advanced level in studios, for example, doing research work or even more experimental practice work. And I use the term experimental explicitly, in a way that one of the many areas that might motivate me is the discovery of new directions for architecture and urban design. And that may involve the application of new kinds of tools, but largely it's trying to make discoveries. And I think that that's an approach which is still trying to learn new things, trying to find new directions, new kinds of spatial effects. And that's usually, by my stage of a career, people sort of level off and they do what they do. But I think I'm probably more impatient in a good way, and eager to both learn new skills and find new directions for the discipline and profession of architecture and urban design.
That's, I think, really motivating, because not many people who have joined architecture or urban design are trying to somehow pull it in a better way, gracefully, I would say. But there are very few who are motivated every day and who, have the drive to innovate and invent even today after so many years. So I think that's really inspiring. You have inspired me in so many ways, and I have with me Shanghai 10 Folio, which is a book edited by you, and I would say a very, very informative for any urbanist who is trying to, peel the layers of how the topography and how design works. So I know you have contributed to many publishings in the best possible capacity. I would like to know what marked your footprints in this direction, like how you thought that, okay, editing or writing is also a trait of your personality.
Hmm. It's interesting because by now, when you introduced me also as a writer, in addition to being an architect, an urban designer, a curator, etc., I never anticipated my career would involve a lot of writing, to be really honest. When I did my professional degree, I struggled with writing. Okay, I got into a good university. I did well. I went on to do a master's, etc. But I didn't write particularly well, and I struggled with the formulation of ideas, the organization of ideas in my head and visually, which I thought were quite fluid and fluent. But I struggled with being able to put them down on paper in words. And when I started to publish in architecture, it was more writing about projects and publishing projects that I was doing with my office, Ocean UK, then eventually Ocean CN. And I wasn't particularly writing pieces that were essays or entire chapters or books. I was writing, about project features and in the architectural press or in compiled books on, the latest architecture, etc. And it took a while until I started to write essays or articles, book chapters, books. And it slowly built by spending more time in academia and being asked to write, would you write an article for this magazine or just this journal? Would you write a book chapter? And I think I grew into to learn the skills that I probably should have learned in high school, to be frank, about how to organize one's ideas and set up a coherent structure to an article, essay, or chapter, or even book. For example, an outline, the value of an outline, I had no appreciation for until well into my 30s. And
very hard to believe for me.
Well, so I think I fell into by spending more and more time in academia, and I think that there's also the expectations of what an academic does, not so much by schools of architecture or programs in urban design, because we as a discipline, more academically, are accepting of quote unquote research being done that is not traditional or textual or academic work, but is more project-based or practice-based or design-based. And the universities still have expectations of publishing in grade 1 journals, etc. And this is a struggle that with processes such as, tenure and promotion, within schools of architecture, academics are expected to do whatever their research is. If you do lots of projects and you win awards, that's great. And if you don't write, that's fine. At a university level, that's very rarely understood. And we have expectations to publish. So I think not the first book that I had contributed to by far, but I'd written maybe some short chapters or several essays and articles, but then I published Master Planning the Adaptive City, which is somewhere here. A copy is somewhere here on my wall of books or shelves, which I can't seem to locate right now. Normally, it's pretty handy. And it was a book that I thought was important to write. Master Planning the Adaptive City, Computational Technologies in the 21st Century, as an approach to the city that there was some literature on an evolutionary approach to the city, how one simulates computationally more time-based and dynamic processes, and an understanding that cities change and grow, and how do we interact as designers within those processes. And I thought that was a really important area to research. I had done that through projects, and I felt it was important to write about it. But I also had the pressure, let's say, of at the University of Hong Kong, a highly ranked research university where we were expected to publish at the university level. So I understood a certain pressure to publish and thought that, that will be good for me at the university as well. And then I realized, well, I've just written 70,000 words, not that it was easy. And I then did other things over the next decade. So now I've published a number of books, but more recently triggered in a course at NYIT, I worked on a seminar for 3 years with MArch students. The seminar was Beyond the Envelope, and the format involved interviewing architects of great buildings that we would analyze with students. So students did diagrams analytically of the work, and published a book. That I think I have more. No, I don't have that nearby here either. And so the book comprises transcribed and edited interviews with 21 architects, the 21 projects analyzed by students and post-produced, and professional photos. And I think for the students, there's an incredible opportunity to see how the interview as a kind of mode of investigating a project, how the questions get formulated with the students, and the students led these interviews, and how that interrogation through the diagrams has another component more visually. And then I'm actually planning on not writing for a little while, and focusing much more, not exclusively, but much more intently on doing projects.
Why would you do that to us? Because I love your writings and the way you put things. I would definitely, if you allow me, I would definitely clip few things from this book, and you can see the amazing work which is, described in this book. I think there are many more under your folio which you have, edited and published, and I think we, as a young professionals, learn so much from your experience, and I have always enjoyed the read. I would definitely try to get my hands on your new book. I think it would be a pleasure for me, because the way you describe things and you put so many softwares into the knowledge, and people come to know about so many technologies and interventions, and the way you look at perspectives, you just depict a new picture of how you can peel the layers of design without interfering with the nature, and I think that's really good thought process. So our next question would be that you have been highly involved with waterfront redesigning, and how we can work on waterfronts on the coastal areas. And there are so many waterfront sites in Manhattan, New York, and for people who are from Manhattan or have been able to travel, they know that some of the areas are unattended or are looking for attention and are revived. And you have worked on it majorly. So, what are your ideas about waterfront redesigning and any coastal intervention that happens over the period of time?
It's a very interesting question. I'd have to say I'm not so much an expert in waterfront design, but I think that anybody working within architecture and urban design, academically, professionally, has to be ultimately focused on the very real threats to the edge of land and water across the world. In the whole world, and all planet Earth, the majority of our population lives very near a waterfront. The actual figures and statistics can be debated, and they vary in different parts of the world. But there's huge numbers of our global population that are vulnerable on coastlines, and this will become increasingly apparent with climate change, rising seas, or more erratic weather events.
Definitely.
Here in the context of New York City, I think that's exceptionally exacerbated. I mean, we had a Superstorm Sandy. Now there are some parts of South Brooklyn that are going through managed retreat. There's some big efforts going on to mitigate, but maybe far from enough, I believe. And it's in New York itself, there's 860 some linear kilometers of length of coastline, 500 and some miles of coastline, of either ocean coastline on the South Brooklyn and South Queens, or
Hmm.
North Queens, or riverfronts, all of which are tidal, all of which are subjected to storm surges. And in this sense, New York, like many other coastal cities, are highly vulnerable.
Yeah.
And, in our future, I think that we're either going to have to live away from coastlines, or we have to deal with, which is, too big a consequence to carry out, or we will have to learn how to deal with that and actually take action against rising seas and climate change. There are some parts of the world that are far more vulnerable than others. For example,
Yeah.
Bangladesh or Indonesia is
Hmm.
moving its capital city from Jakarta, because Jakarta is at once sinking, but sea levels are rising. And so
Yeah.
the city is super vulnerable, and the Indonesian government has taken the decision to move the capital city. And
That
this
is
is,
so alarming.
it's very alarming.
Yeah.
We are living in an era where the coastline of our land, globally speaking, is at once under great threat, and is probably the biggest challenge for architecture and urban design. I mean, it goes with rising temperatures and other sorts of challenges with climate change, but certainly flooding is incredibly destructive, and perhaps is one of the greatest challenges for architecture and urban design in the next generation or so.
Yeah, I think you raised a very good point that either we have to learn how to deal with it or we have to stay away from it. There is no gray matter, there is only white and black. I think that's really good. So you have traveled across the world and you have lived in China for so many years, and then you moved back to US. And what's the major difference as an urbanist or architect you find it? What are the things that attract you most?
That attract me to what? To move
Like
back
to
to
move back,
Europe?
maybe like the good things about the China or the things that really make you feel home at New York. I mean, from an architect's point of view or as an urbanist, what are the things that satiates your creativity, that okay, this is the urban structure that really inspired me to design more, or this was something really inspiring in China that I looked through the years.
Hmm. Um, well, I'd have to clarify that I'd only moved to New York in 2018, and I never lived here before.
Yeah.
I've visited New York many times in my life. I had family here when I was very young,
Hmm.
um, friends. I started coming professionally, but I'd never lived here. So I was born and raised and did my professional degree at McGill University in Montreal, just up the road. Um, and so my professional background was, well, in Canada, or my academic, my degree. But I'd never worked in North America as an architect, a couple of
Yeah.
summers. And more my professional foundation was set up, and I launched an office in London. And moving to Hong Kong was a huge difference, of course, of the density of the city, or of the speed of urbanization in China. And I think moving to New York, I mean, there's a couple of things that I find, well, one is maybe the that I really love about New York is the certainly of Manhattan and parts of Brooklyn, more so than the other boroughs, is the co-presence of very new contemporary architecture with the remnants of the city's history. And
Hmm.
largely, it's a much more intact city than London is, because of maybe bombing in the Second World War and a lot of tearing down of historic architecture senselessly. And so
Mm-hmm.
the city kind of exudes this relationship between its history and its present, and constantly kind of trying to reinvent itself for its future. And so it has, compared with maybe some Chinese cities that might have a historic older part, but for the most part are, 3 minutes old. There's that aspect which I find is uh, exciting, to be around this kind of record of the city's growth and of its making, the presence of its history.
Parts of China which are growing immensely in terms of all the facilities and amenities available for locals. I'm impressed by the amenities available in Korea. I mean, oh my God, the Korean cities are so well equipped in the technology and the kind of mindset they have. They are really acing their game, I would say that.
Hmm.
And that's impressive.
It is impressive that
Yeah.
in China, never before has so much urbanism been built, but also the
Hmm.
caliber of what gets built, not uniformly, but if one looks at maybe Korea, as you mentioned, or Japan,
Yeah.
is truly exceptional. The focus on the quality of execution of architecture, and the way that the urban spaces are the caliber of them, the care and craft and the maintenance is really exceptional, and especially when one compares to New York in some ways.
Tell me about Shanghai 10, a book which has your contributions as an editor, and can you list few of your suggestions as a reader, that how you can look at the concepts that are listed in the book.
Well, the book is not a book in a way about a particular topic or subject.
Hmm.
The book was made as part of a celebration of the first 10 years of what became a 12-year program, which I directed as part of
Hmm.
the AA visiting school in Shanghai for 12 years. And at 10 years, I think the AA is a school that likes to celebrate itself. I can
Yeah.
give you another book that we did at the AA. There's a great big X,
Okay.
which is the Roman numeral 10. And that was for a program I directed at the AA, the Design Research Lab, or co-directed with others, and taught in um, for, I think, 12 cycles, 13
Hmm.
years, and another couple of years of teaching in other parts of the AA before that. And so at 10 years, we thought, let's do a book, an exhibition, a symposium, and build a pavilion. It was so crazy ambitious. And still had to teach, and the program was very large. And so when it was coming up to the 10 years of the program in Shanghai, I'd proposed to um, do a similar sort of thing, do a book, a big symposium, and an exhibition of work from the students from 10 years of the program, the people who had taught in the program, and visitors, and to transcribe some of the symposium that we did the year before. And so it became a project about compiling the history of the program. I was very much invested into the program and committed as its director. The aim of the program grew, or the ambition of the program grew, as it developed. Say, from the first couple of years, we were just trying to launch a workshop far away and see where it goes, have good people
Hmm.
teaching, and see where it goes. They were doing these mashups between Shanghai and Venice, or Beijing and Amsterdam, and it sounds sort of flippant and absurd in a way, but we're now more used to these surreal ideas that come from generative AI.
Hmm.
But for me, that was the ethos of the program was a 9-day experiment every year, and to focus on questions about Chinese urbanism. And, it was a fulfilling academic venture for many, many years. We wrapped it up in 2018 when the A decided that the program was, they're not going to look for other directors. They'll have other programs in other places. There were many other programs the A was running, and the whole thing ended in Shanghai, which was absolutely fine. I wanted it to continue, but it was okay. The AA said, look, it's built around you, and I don't know, we'd have to reinvent it, and we have many other programs, so we'll end the program.
Hmm.
But I think we achieved things that would be very difficult in today's China.
Yeah.
From a political or geopolitical perspective, we had exceptional freedom to, and I use the word explicitly, to get students from all over the world to come to China for this 9-day program,
Hmm.
try some new things out, and built a community of over 1,000 students who came through the program. Um,
But
it was an adventure.
yeah, I think it is an incredible piece, at least for me, because I relate to it as a master's student also, because you have done somehow a similar exercise with us also, trying to teach how things work in the topography and different design perspectives, and how you deal with it, and how you can really uplift the game of you know creating patterns and topographies, and making your own interventions with the help of new technologies. And so I really like this piece of information. When you look at the incredible work of all the students, really motivates you that I mean, how minds can really innovate, and how evolved they can be. Because when you look at each work and piece, you know that okay, this is done with a lot of attention, and I mean, they put their heart and soul into it.
Mm.
So, Professor, please give a feedback to all the graduates who, you know, are trying to draw motivation every day, because I think with a great experience on the hand, and you're gifted with some, I would say, because as a student, I'm always in awe when you are talking, and even when during the lecture or any day you are trying to guide me through something, I'm always all ears for that, because I don't want to miss any piece of information. I don't know when you will say something that might help me in a major way, and I try to listen to the words. So any feedback, because I think that would be a very words of wisdom for any professional in any phase of their life.
Mm. Well, I'd say that for those that have learned lots of new skills, many of my students, either at the AA or maybe in the urban design program at NYIT that you had graduated from, and at University of Hong Kong, well, I guess there's two kinds of advice I like to give. Is one is not to disappear, and to remain visible and present, and really active, and not to settle in a sense for second best, is what I mean by
Yeah.
not here. To remain at the forefront. That sounds a
Hmm.
bit abstract and even vague as advice. But some of the advice I've given to students who developed like more advanced skills, computational skills or technical skills, which takes a lot of investment, a lot of time to
Hmm.
acquire skills, but technology moves so quickly.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I've told so many students who are about to graduate or just graduating that, you are now at the height of your technical ability. And don't,
Hmm.
if you let it slide and if you don't keep working on it. And that's not something that's done on nights and weekends as a side
Yeah.
project, actually, rather searching for offices and jobs or even clients eventually that will allow you to continue to develop your skill set and to remain at the forefront technologically. And I don't think, it's not really about technology, but it's the use of technology for some of the most forward-thinking practices
Mm-hmm.
is absolutely necessary as part of their culture. So the technology really is not so much just technology for the technology's sake, but so many offices rely upon advanced skills or the experimentation, more haptically playing with technology and applying it very seriously in their work. And for graduates who don't take on a job that allows them to continue to develop
Mm-hmm.
more technologically, you end up becoming one can become fossilized in the year month that you graduate at, because if one's skills don't develop,
Yeah.
you end up flattening out, and that's very easy to happen. It's I'd say I'm not a good example of that, and I say that also because that's my advice to other people, is that if you really want to remain at the forefront, you have to spend 50 to 70 hours a week focusing really on remaining up to date with technology. Not everybody's a technologist, and I think that's just one example about a very concrete and real example about how do you remain up to date. One way is
Mm-hmm.
technology. There are many other ways of reading, going to lectures and conferences and symposia, and going to exhibitions and music. There's a lot of other maybe more cultural ways to remain up to date and relevant in
Yeah.
a design discipline, than necessarily just staying up to date with the latest software. So I'd hope my comments don't get interpreted as just it's all about technology. It's very much about the remaining relevant and valuable and current in whichever way possible, but ultimately really
Yeah.
about the forefront of the culture of our discipline, not just the technology.
No, I truly agree, and I think that's a very constructive feedback and words of wisdom said by you, because you have to stay relevant with times, and you have to do what is required and the need of the situation. And I think in any part of the industry you are, be it architecture or urban design or graphic designing, technology is going to play a huge role in the coming future, and definitely we should like to hone our skills so that we can have better opportunities coming our way and land ourselves in a very strong foundation when it comes to our work front. So I think that's really nice. Professor, thank you so much for doing this with us. And I'm going to wrap up the session by just, conveying my thanks to you. And really, thank you so much. I would like to say that you have always been someone who's so approachable to each and everyone, around you when it comes to any piece of advice or anything. I know you are just an email away whenever anybody likes to reach out to you, and you are extremely busy. I know that for sure. And even then you make sure that anybody who has knocked at your door for something, for any suggestion, feedback, advice, career related, you make sure that you contribute to their day by sharing whatever experience you think is needful. And I think that's a really good sensitive approach towards your students or colleagues or anybody, because that makes them humble enough to reach out again, because they know they have the scope to squeeze some useful information which they can really implement in the future. So thank you so much for being this humble and kind and always guiding me. I can totally talk about myself that okay, you have always been very very active in guiding me through all the career related things. And yes, thank you so much for doing this, and really really happy to have you on board.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation, for speaking today. Congratulations to having this podcast and the YouTube channel. I'm sure it's going to build into a great collection of interviews and
Touch
conversations.
wood.
And it's
Yeah.
really impressive to see that you have launched it. It makes me, as your former professor, very proud to see that you're doing this. And congratulations. So thank you very much for inviting me to join you today.